Welcome back to the Ultimate Whey Protein Guide by Brad Newton. In this section of the course, we're going to be talking about amino spiking. It sounds horrific. It actually is, unfortunately. Now, it wouldn't be a complete guide without mention of amino spiking, also known as nitrogen spiking or protein spiking. It's a practice that has been going on for years in the supplement industry. Not many people know about it. Consumers like you watching this are probably thinking, what is this all about? I will explain it to you in this section. I will break this section down into two parts. I don't want it to be any longer than what it needs to be, but I want to give you all the information you need to make a decision about the types of whey protein products out there that you intend on buying. There are so many different whey protein products out there from so many different companies, and so I believe that you guys need to know about what's going on in this industry, and I'm going to teach you not just what amino spiking is, but I'm going to teach you how to read labels so that you don't get scammed. And what I mean by scammed is you think you're buying a certain amount of protein in your product, but you're not. You're probably getting half the amount of protein that's on the label. So companies use amino spiking to mislead you into thinking that you're getting more protein, that is, the amount of protein that's on the label, than you actually are. So in this section, we're going to go through some labels. I'm going to show you how to identify products that have been spiked. I'm going to explain what amino spiking is. I'm going to give you the general reasoning behind why companies do it. And then at the end of this section, I'll give you some recommended proteins that you can buy that I am almost certain have not been spiked. So we're going to get this underway. So firstly, what is amino spiking? Well, firstly, before we go into what amino spiking is, let's get some background on this. So protein is made up of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. We know this, right? From previous discussions, we've talked about how amino acids that are bound together are called protein structures. So we know that hair, nails, and different parts of your body require protein, but that protein occurs in different forms depending on the amino acids that make up that particular protein. So we talked about protein being made up of these little Lego pieces called, amino acids bound together via peptides. And so that's our protein. Now, the dietary reference intake by the National Academy of Sciences define a protein as these macromolecules that are bound together with amino acids. So they don't define individual amino acids as protein. So for example, this product here is L-carnitine. It's an amino acid. It's an amino acid you can buy separately from a supplement store. You can buy almost any amino acid in its individual form in a container like this as a white powder, but I can't call this a protein, even though this is one of the building blocks to a protein structure. I can't call this a protein because it's not. It's an amino acid which makes up a protein, but it's not a protein. So that's what the National Academy of Sciences are talking about when they define what a protein is. Now, when you're buying a protein product and you look at the label, and on the back of the label it says 24 grams of protein per serve or 30 grams of protein per serve, what you expect to buy, what you see on the label. 24 grams of protein per serve is what you expect to buy. That's 24 grams of protein, complete protein, that's made up of these amino acids that are bound together. So they're called bound amino acids, or in the term of whey protein, being a complete protein. That's 24 grams of complete protein that you're wanting to spend your money on, made up of these amino acids bound together. What companies do is to save money, they will reduce the amount of bound amino acids. So in other words, they'll reduce the amount of whey protein in the product, and they'll increase the amount of free-form amino acids in that product. They will add cheap amino acids in the individual form. They'll put this into your protein product so that the label reads 24 grams of protein. And how that works on a chemical level is that amino acids contain nitrogen. And so when protein is being measured in foods, protein is measured indirectly by using two different methods. We won't talk about the measuring methods, but using two different methods. Jadal's method is one of them, Dumas is another method. And they can indirectly determine how much protein is in that product by how much nitrogen is contained in that product. And all amino acids contain nitrogen. These free-form amino acids contain nitrogen. The amino acids in a complete form that are bound together contain nitrogen. So when companies reduce the amount of protein you're getting and adding in these free-form amino acids, when they get a laboratory test done for that particular product, they add in the nitrogen from the free-form amino acids with the nitrogen from the amino acids from the complete protein. They add all that nitrogen together and they give you 24 grams of protein. They add everything together. They're adding in cheap amino acids because it's cheaper for them to do that than to give you 24 grams of complete whey protein. Now, it is that bad that you think you're getting 24 grams of protein. There are some companies out there which will reduce that amount by half, and they'll add in like arginine, creatine, you name it, taurine. They'll add in these compounds that contain nitrogen. That's why it's also called nitrogen spiking, because they're spiking the product with nitrogen from these cheaper amino acids or these cheaper compounds like creatine and taurine to bump up the nitrogen levels. So they're selling you 24 grams of protein, but it's not 24 grams of whey protein. It's 12 grams or 15 grams of complete protein with about 5, 6, 7, 8 grams of, amino acids, which are not going to benefit you in terms of building muscle, building strength, and helping you reach your goals. So down the bottom of your screen, there's two separate incidents that occurred 2007, 2008, one with pet food, one with Chinese milk, Chinese powdered milk. And I encourage you guys to go and read up on those two. It gives you a bit of background to spiking. That has nothing to do with whey protein per se, these two here, but it gives you a bit of background of how this has occurred in other areas of the food industry. So check those out. Go to Google, type in, pet food recall 2007 or Chinese milk scandal 2008. You'll see where companies have done something similar and have been caught out on a massive scale. So let's move along and let's have a look at a label, a typical label found on your screen on the back of a whey protein product. And I'm going to show you how you can identify whether that product has been spiked or not. Now, this is not the definitive way of determining whether a product has been spiked or not, but most of the time it is. And I'll explain the exceptions later on. So if you read through this label, it says here that there's 24 grams of protein. Great, because that's what we're buying. We want to buy 24 grams of protein. Then we go down to the ingredients section of the label and we want to read and see if any of these compounds, now it's not limited to these compounds that I've listed, any free-form amino acid that's added into the ingredients section of a label, if that has been added in, then the product has been spiked, and there are a few exceptions, and I'll talk about those exceptions very shortly. Usually it's been spiked if you see any one of these compounds listed anywhere here in the ingredients without any kind of indication as to the quantity of that particular compound that's been added. And I'll clarify that very shortly. So in the ingredients section is what you want to look at. So quickly, let's read it together. So we have ion exchange, whey protein isolates, cross-flow ultrafiltration, so on and so forth. If you can see anywhere in there these compounds exist, then you're possibly onto something. So let's continue. Before we continue, there's one thing I want to mention is that you'll see here that we've got, so in the ingredients section, we have the heaviest compounds first. So the compounds are listed by weight from heaviest to lightest, and that's a legal requirement. So sometimes you'll see the compounds listed in amongst this area here where whey protein concentrate is, whey protein isolates are. Sometimes you'll see the compounds listed toward the end of the label where the quantities are quite small. We'll talk more about that as we move along. So as we go to the next label, I want you guys to look at this label and tell me, by looking at this label, whether it has been spiked or not with any kind of amino acid. Now, just as an indication, just as a bit of a tip for you, an amino acid usually ends in INE. So not always, but most times it ends in INE. So if you can see anything that's ending INE, just make sure you do a Google check to make sure it's an amino acid, right? But it's most likely going to be an amino acid. If you have a look through this label here, read it through, protein blend. So we have the protein blend of this product is made up of whey protein isolates, concentrate, and peptides. And if you continue reading through, maltodextrin, salt, and so forth. So can you see anywhere there where this product contains any one of these compounds? By the way, these are the most common compounds that are part of this whole amino spiking saga. There's more than this, but these are the common ones. Glycine is a huge perpetrator. That one there's very common. Creatine is another one as well. By the way, creatine is a fantastic supplement on its own. I always recommend people taking it if they want to build strength and build muscle. I talk more about that in my creatine course. If you click on my name, check that out. But put the creatine in yourself. Buy your whey protein products without creatine so that you know how much creatine is going in your product when you add it yourself. So creatine is great, but not as part of a whey protein product that you're buying off the shelf. So if we read through this label, there is no indication on this label that there's any spiking whatsoever. Now, the same product has this label on it. If I turn the tub around, it has this label on it, which would immediately make you think that the product is being spiked. Now look at how many amino acids are listed on this label here. Now, this does not mean the product is being spiked. These are the amino acids that are naturally occurring inside that 24 grams of protein. So over here, follow on my screen, we have 24 grams of protein. Remember, protein is made up of amino acids, complete amino acids in this case. So that 24 grams of protein is comprised of all of that. And they've actually gone as far as to list the quantities of each type of amino acid, essential amino acids, conditionally essential, and so forth. So this is normal. This does not mean, if you see a table like this on your whey protein product, it does not mean it's spiked. These are the amino acids that we're paying for. These amino acids are all bound together. They're all bound together. They make a complete protein that we're spending our money buying 24 grams of protein of. Does that make sense? It's the ingredients that you see down here. It's when those compounds are in here. If you have a look on your screen, they're added down here in the ingredients section. They're added in addition to what you see on that screen. So that's what we're spending our money on, that. And not all companies disclose a table like this. Some companies do it to be transparent. So I'm going to continue this in part 2, and I hope this has made sense. We're going to clarify things as we go along, and join me in part 2 very shortly. Thank you for watching.